Okay, so I recently ranked all of the Jutsu in both the attack and range class, and today we're going to be continuing with that series, this time focusing on defense types. With the release of the brand new version of Shisui, there's now exactly 38 Jutsu to get through, so without wasting any more time, let's get to it. Coming in last on the list is Earth Style Mod Wall Jutsu. It makes you create a mod wall in front of you that can absorb a bunch of attacks before being destroyed, while also dealing slight damage and resetting the Jutsu stocks of anyone directly under it when it gets created. I know that there are people who defend this Jutsu, and to those individuals I just have one question. What is wrong with you? Okay, maybe there are some incredibly rare instances where you can use this to block a path successfully, but that's about it. Apart from that, this Jutsu just sucks. Moving on, we have 8 trigrams palm rotation, which makes you take a stance and spin around a spelling chakra if anyone attacks you, completely blocking the damage and dealing around 10% yourself. Even though this jutsu stops almost every attack in the game, it unfortunately lags in all the other aspects. The damage you deal is very low and the area effect isn't exactly large either, making this jutsu situational at best. Next up on our list is Earth Style Petrifying Jutsu, which encases you in a pillar of stone after performing a couple of hand signs. While in the stone, you're completely protected from most jutsu and you also recover about 20% of your health. This is a decent technique for capturing objectives, and even though the regeneration is nice, there are just many jutsu that are much better at the same thing, making this a bit forgettable. Following up is Wood Style Domed Wall, which is just an upgraded version of the Mud Wall Jutsu. It makes you create a quarter spherical dome which deals 20% damage to anyone around while being summoned. It's actually okay for damaging enemies and knocking them back as the area of damage is not that small. Apart from that, it does the same thing as the Mud Wall in terms of blocking out pathways and such. Let's move down to our next entry, Summoning Toad. This jutsu makes you create a large toad that stays around for 14 seconds and shoots water projectiles at approaching enemies. Out of the non-character summoning jutsus, this is probably the best one, which isn't saying much to be honest. It can at least be okay at blocking some paths and making life just a bit more difficult for your opponents. Next up on the list is Partial Expansion Jutsu, which doubles your arm size and makes you do a double backhand spin, dealing damage to anyone caught in the attack. This is a decent offensive tool for if you're surrounded by more than one player. That being said, it doesn't deal enough damage in my opinion and isn't incredibly easy to hit either. It does have a different variation if you are in the air though, which is at least pretty neat. Up next on the ranking we have Wood Style Silent Strangle Jutsu, which makes you summon tree bark threats around your enemy, stunning them for 5 seconds. This jutsu is very similar to Lightning Shuriken net for range types. It's unblockable and can be subbed out of either. It's a decent stun that can be well utilized if you have a good attack to follow it up with. Not much more to say though. Let's continue with the next entry, Spiked Human Boulder. This technique makes you curl into a spiky ball made out of your own hair, allowing you to roll with high speed and mow down enemies, dealing 10% on hit. This is mainly good as a movement tool for flag battle, though you should stick to mainly using it on flat maps. It can deal good damage when you for example push someone against the wall, but it's too inconsistent to be used for that in my opinion. Continuing on, we have Sand Shower, which creates a storm of sand bullets which rain down from the sky on a large area. Its main use case is in defending objectives, as it not only deals damage but also slows down the enemies, making it pretty annoying to deal with. It can be pretty difficult to get out of for the opponents, nonetheless I would mainly stick to using it in game modes where you're protecting some sort of objective. Next pop on the list belongs to Toad Oil Bombs, which makes you shoot out a liquid bullet out of your mouth, dealing a bit of damage while also lowering the enemy's movement speed and sealing away their ninjutsu for 10 seconds. The seal away ninjutsu is definitely the best part of this attack, as it's pretty easy to hit due to its tracking and speed. That being said, don't exactly expect to get a lot of damage out of this thing. Hey, are you enjoying the video so far? If so, I'd just like to quickly ask you to consider subscribing, as we're currently trying to get to 1000 subscribers and every single sub helps at this point. Anyway, let's continue with the list. The next spot on the list is occupied by Earth Style Subterranean Voyage, which simply makes you bury yourself into the ground, making you mostly invulnerable to damage and also healing you for around 5% of your total health. This technique basically has the same properties as Madara's jutsu of the same type. It's mainly good for getting around the map and contesting bases, as you cannot capture them with this jutsu. Let's move on to our next spot, occupied by Magna Style Gold Dust Grade Burial. This jutsu makes you create a wall made out of golden dust that by second input of the jutsu button you can make move in one direction. The wall not only blocks pathways but also sweeps any enemy in its way and deals damage to them, at which point they cannot sub away. This is a pretty good jutsu if you're playing on an even map without any obstacles, cause if the wall runs into them it will just crumble away. Moving on with the ranking, we have Ninja Art Needle Jizo. This jutsu shrouds you in white spiky hair, neglecting most damage and lashing out at any close by enemies, dealing around 25% of damage while knocking them back. The jutsu doesn't last very long though, clocking it at around 4 seconds, making it a little bit unreliable while defending objectives. It also has quite a few counters that can nowadays pierce it, making it a bit less viable than it used to be. Moving down, we have a Shinobi striker staple, Sand Shield. This jutsu makes you create a half a sphere of sand around you, not allowing anyone inside and blocking incoming damage. This jutsu was very good at the release of the game, but it has since become less viable due to the sheer amount of counters this jutsu has. Chances are someone on the enemy team will be able to break it, nevertheless it's still very useful for base battle. Next up, we have Earth Style Earth Dragon Bullet. I'm not sure if it's an unpopular opinion to have this jutsu above Sand Shield, but I just think it's a bit more consistent. It makes you create an Earth Dragon that spits out mud bullets for 10 seconds. It takes a little while to summon, but gives you super armor, and it also doesn't have a health bar, so it cannot be destroyed. If placed well, it can be very annoying to deal with in both flag and base battle, not allowing enemies to capture the objective. Coming up next on the list, we have Water Style Shark Bomb. This jutsu makes you create a water shark that first circles around you and then launches itself at the targeted enemy, dealing around 40% if both parts hit. Furthermore, it also resets the opponent's ninjutsu stocks upon impact. This is one of the better base game jutsus for dealing damage that defense types have, as even if the shark doesn't connect while circling around you, it is still likely to hit while being fired off, making it one of the more consistent damage dealers in this class. Following up on the list, we have Boruto Stream, which after performing a couple of hand signs, makes you create 2 shadow clones that throw you at the opponent and allow you to land a Rasengan. Furthermore, you can keep holding the jutsu button down, and if anyone hits you, you can cancel the damage and teleport behind them, performing the same attack. This is the ultimate counterattack jutsu, as it's basically a combination of a sub and a Rasengan, doing the best of both. It's best in something like defending the flag, but can be used elsewhere too. Moving down the list, we have 8 trigrams Hazan Strike, which makes you take a gentle step stance before charging your opponent with a palm attack, followed by a lightning beam, dealing 10% damage in total. The best part of this jutsu is the fact that it pretty considerably decreases the secret technique gauge of the enemy, while also resetting their sub, which allows you to get a full combo in even after the attack is done. This jutsu will just straight up stop ultimates from getting used. It provides immense utility in that sense. Continuing on is Fire Style Dragon Flame Bomb. This is just a straightforward fire projectile, dealing roughly 30% damage to the enemy upon impact. It only moves in a straight line, but due to its speed and width, it isn't a problem at all to hit enemies. So if you're looking for a decent little range attack for your defense class build, this jutsu is probably a good way to go. Next up on the list, we have Lightning Style Thunderclap Arrow, which first makes you release a torrent of water, trapping anyone that gets hit by it and dealing damage in the process. After pressing the Jutsu button again, you release a beam of lightning into it, electrifying the enemies and dealing more damage. This is mainly great for defending flags and bases, as it can also destroy things like Sand Shield in the process. Following up is Sand Tsunami, which makes you create a big sand wave that you can control, trampling and damaging any enemy that gets hit by it. The wave also leaves behind additional sand that you can then make explode with a second input of the Jutsu button. This technique sort of suffers from the same issues as the Gold Dust Wall, as it's very good on even ground but can be frustrating to use on certain maps. That being said, still a great jutsu for team battles. Continuing on with our list, we have Water Prison Jutsu, which makes you perform hand signs for 2 seconds before charging your opponent, placing them in a water prison if you hit them. The prison lasts for about 7 seconds and continually deals damage to the trapped enemy over that time. It's a great way to isolate someone and then get them out of the game for a little bit. Plus you can also counter another jutsu with it, since you can basically have a free hit. Your allies can cancel a prison though with just a basic attack, so you have to watch out for that. Up next is Kamui Climax, which just simply makes you invulnerable for 5 seconds, unless you're attacking someone that is, in which case the effect goes away and you instead get a 1.5 attack boost. This jutsu is great for both flag and base battle, as it makes it quite a bit easier to capture or contest the desired objectives. That being said, I think it's not as good as Kamui Bond that the range types have, since you're probably not gonna be able to carry the flag as a defense type. Moving on, we have Snake Thrust, which makes you extend your arm and push the enemy away, dealing around 30% damage and also breaking things like Sand Shield and Water Pillar. This is still one of the most straightforward but consistent damage dealing jutsus in the game. It can be hard to hit moving players as the jutsu has no tracking whatsoever, but it's fast enough where you can work around that, and the 30% is still a lot for defense types, making this jutsu viable to this day. Next up we have the second jutsu of Mitsuki's arsenal, Ripple. Very similar to the last entry, this time the jutsu will pull the enemy towards you instead of pushing them away, which is actually why I have it a little bit higher, as it allows you to deal even more damage with subsequent light attacks. Apart from that, it basically has all of the same properties as Snake Thrust, including the fact that it breaks Sand Shield and Water Pillar. Up next is Sand Coffin, which makes you create 4 sand hands that upon impact trap the enemy in the sand coffin. When the jutsu button is pressed again, the enemy gets squeezed and dealt damage. This is kind of like a ranged version of the water person jutsu, with the additional benefit of allowing you not only to deal damage by activating the jutsu again, but also by hitting the coffin before it breaks, allowing for some fun combos. Continuing on, we have Karma, which first makes you lunge at the enemy, dealing damage and grabbing them by the neck, putting a seal on them as well. Upon further activation, you teleport behind the enemy, attacking them with a dive kit and also getting a speed buff. This is just a reliable way to deal damage while also dodging other attacks, and the speed buff isn't exactly bad either. Moving down the list, we have Gentle Fist technique Body Blow. This is basically like a better substitution, as it makes you expel chakra out of your body, dealing 5% damage and knocking the enemies back. I might be putting this a little bit too high, but I think it's criminally underrated, as it not only allows you to cancel the enemy's attack, but also gives you a big opportunity to strike back immediately. It also cancels super armor and can destroy both Sand Shield and Water Pillar. Next entry on the list belongs to Flying Thrust, Heavenly Hand Power, which first makes you throw a kunai, after which you can press the jutsu button again, teleport to its location and attack the enemy with a chidori. Apart from the fact that it's just really fun to use, it's also incredibly easy to land, and also allows you to dodge some attacks that otherwise are almost guaranteed hits, such as Majestic Destroyer Flame. Okay, our next entry is Susanoo Tsukumo, which before getting into it, I had to say I've only been able to play one game with the new Shisui Jutsu, as there was only a brief period of time where the game was playable in the last week due to maintenance. So take everything I say with a pinch of salt, that goes for both of his techniques. This Jutsu shrouds you in half a Susanoo, protecting you from all damage and also allowing you to release a stream of sand bond upon second input. That has its damage decided based on how much you were able to protect yourself in the first part of the Jutsu. This seems like a good Jutsu overall, but really good for something like Flag Battle, where you can just stop the enemy from entering the zone altogether. Up next on the list, we have Flying Raijin Guiding Thunder, which makes you create a dome made out of chakra which absorbs any projectiles apart from secret technique, but also gives your allies a boost in attack and defense. This is one of the best support type jutsus in the game, as being in the dome gives your team a huge advantage in basically any game mode, and especially in something like combat battle. Following up is Demon Hunter. The jutsu makes you first slump over for 2 seconds before lunging at your opponent and slicing them, dealing decent damage. For the duration of the jutsu and afterwards you get super armor, meaning that the attack can feel a bit unstoppable at times. It also recovers a portion of your health. This jutsu is just a really consistent hit, and a great way to finish off enemies that are trying to flee. Let's continue with our next entry, that being Uchiha Flame Formation. This technique makes you shroud yourself and the surrounding allies in a ring of flames, not only defending everyone from the next hit, but also dealing 20% damage and knocking the enemy back if the hit is up close. This is one of the best defensive jutsus for protecting everyone in the game, but under one condition. You need a coordinated team to get the most out of it, because using this without one just leads to you mostly protecting only a few people. Up next is Hidden Jutsu Sukuna Hikona. This is in my opinion the best defensive eye technique in the game, as it's just like a better Sharingan. It puts you in a state where you instantly nullify any projectile targeting you, and if you get hit by a close range attack, you sub away and then are allowed to strike the enemy down with black rods. It just gives you so many protection layers, not to mention you sub away using time space hop, meaning you're again invulnerable. Okay, moving on towards the end of the list, we have Genjutsu Sharingan. This eye technique gives you and your surrounding allies the Sharingan ability, basically giving you an extra sub. Additionally, if anyone hits you, they get attacked by a phantom that puts them into a Genjutsu, which deals a bit of damage but also stuns them. This jutsu feels very OP, but doesn't last as long as a normal Sharingan, and the high cooldown of 25 seconds makes it more balanced than it might seem at first glance. Let's move on to our next entry, Celestial Air Slide Type 0. This attack makes you throw out 8 kunai, and if any of them land, you teleport to the location and start performing a multiple hit teleportation combo, not only damaging the hit enemy but anyone caught in the area of effect. This is the best AoE attack the defense class has, as you're completely invulnerable during the combo, and the enemies have no way to get out of it. It doesn't deal massive damage, but can significantly slow down the enemy team in whatever they are doing. And at the top of the list we have Susanoo Armor, which shrouds you in the Susanoo ribcage, protecting you from most but not all kinds of damages. Even though this definitely isn't the perfect defense, it's still the only jutsu to provide such armor while also allowing you to continue attacking or doing anything else really. Due to this fact, it's not only useful in base and flag battle, but also in combat battle, since you can just safely deal damage yourself. Alright, and that was the final jutsu. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the list. And sorry I wasn't able to get the full Shisui review out there, as there just simply wasn't enough time to get the footage due to the increasingly long maintenance on PlayStation. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, and if you enjoyed, then a sub and a like is greatly appreciated, and I will see you all soon. Bye!